So I suppose I am up next. Hello, friends, fellow sojourners, fellow Fresh Expressions practitioners. I'm Zack Townsend. I am uh, actually a provisional elder, and I'm serving at a little church called Pine Log. Let me share my screen real quick. Pine Log United Methodist Church. Um, let's see here. There we go. I don't know if that's shared or not. Let me see. Yeah, Pine Log United Methodist Church. It is. We actually boast about having the oldest continuously used church structure in Bartow County. That church was actually built in 1842, and we still worship there today. And this is actually my sixth year here. I'm finishing my sixth year, and we'll be going into my seventh year. Next year, started out as a student pastor while I was working on my MDiv at Candler School of Theology, and we were able to go full time last year, which was a huge blessing and especially in the middle of a pandemic. And so lots of history. We've got a book about the history of our church, very old historic congregation. We live we're in a place where this field over here with like canola and the Sea Rock City sign. Those are like big landmarks, but there's nothing else. We've got two gas stations and a Dollar General and a post office, and that's it. We don't even have a traffic light out here. And I tell folks we live about 30 minutes from everything. So it's a very rural area outside of Cartersville, Georgia, on the outskirts of Bartow County. And so in this context, a couple of things that we've tried to tap into really are from a Fresh Expressions perspective. One of them is actually called it's called the book club that started out meeting at a brewery downtown, a local brewery. And they kind of quit meeting for a minute and had gotten back together, and actually are going to be meeting at a food truck park that's about 12 miles up the road. It's a beer garden and food truck park. It's a group of 20s that get together, and we're sort of in that stage of becoming church and exploring discipleship. And, another one that we've got is there's a bike park out here that we're going to start this year called a ministry called Fellow Verses, where we just share a verse of scripture with all the Atlanteans that come out here to ride on our back roads to meditate on as they ride. And then when they return from the ride, we're going to have basically a dinner church at a pavilion over at Soesby's Bike Park. But these are ones that are in my context, in my church, in my community. But I really am joining y'all today to talk about Living Room Church VR. So Living Room Church VR is actually a church that has come into existence and has really been born and taken shape entirely in the metaverse, like entirely in virtual reality, within this platform called Alt Space. I know it may sound strange, it may sound hokey to some of y'all that to have a church in virtual reality, but we're sitting here on Zoom, you know what I mean, during a webinar, having a conference essentially, and Zoom was not a part of our vocabulary 2 years ago, but today it's a very common form of communication. And so it's really not that radical and not that strange, but I believe in a lot of ways that digital space is where we need to be. So I may be in a very historic church, and this seems very futuristic in a lot of ways, but we may not have tons of opportunities for fresh expressions in this area, but we've got internet access, and there's people in the online world and in the online realm. And so kind of started looking at this as something that may be possible really around Christmas, and had sort of looked into it and discovered people getting these headsets, these Oculus headsets or whatever, and jumping into the metaverse, and discovered that there are a couple 100 million VR users across the world who are logging on regularly. And there's tons of different apps once you get in there that people connect on in similar ways to, I guess, social media or Facebook, but much more interactive. The one that we are on right now is Alt Space. There's several other apps: Horizon, Alcove, Big Screen, Rec Room, where people gather and do different things. Some people jump in there and they'll go to the movie theater with their friends, or some people will go to the comedy club or go to a karaoke bar or whatever. So there's people in these social environments there already gathering. And so the thought was, why not plant a church there? Why not go there with a fresh expression of church within this space? And so this is really not been an offshoot of my local church. It's several of us kind of collaborated and sort of teamed up to move forward with it. And I think Michael on his thing yesterday used the analogy of building the airplane while you fly it. And I thought that was such a good analogy, because really that's ultimately really what we've done with Living Room Church VR. And so myself and actually Michael and Jill have been a part of it, and Brittany LeClaire and her husband Todd, and so we've had a group sort of early on that kind of started things going, and along the way we've had several other people who have jumped in and joined in our efforts to kind of make this happen. And one of the things that we realized early on was that churches had started putting satellite VR campuses in alt space, but what they were doing was taking and replicating exactly what we were doing in the world. They would create, stadiums with a big screen, and there was a monologue, and people would go there and they would hear it and they would leave a lot of times. And so our hearts, and as a part of this Fresh Expressions movement, believing that there are other things that we need to do to be the church differently, felt like there was an opportunity to create a fresh expression in this online space that didn't look like the church in the world. And so we created this room, and I'll show you what it looks like. Actually, here's our little avatars. I'm on the right here. This is Dave Dybert. That's Mike, our Jedi master, Michael Beck, and his wife, Jill. And there's Brittany LeClaire. And so we created this space, and this is actually the living room. And this is all the folks that have been on one of the nights that we gathered. And we gather up, and out here on the patio area, you can go out there and throw cornhole bean bags, and you can shoot basketball with people, or you can throw fireworks at people and hang out and socialize and talk. And then at 8:20 Eastern time, we come into this space and we do introductions, and we talk to each other, share who we are and where we're from, and somebody lifts up a song. A lot of times it's very organic, and it's just somebody there who feels led to sing a song, a worship song. And so we'll do that. And then there's a Jesus story. It's not a sermon per se, it's a sermonic conversation a lot of times, where there's a passage of scripture that is introduced, or there's a story that's told that has been on somebody's heart, and they'll lift that up and put it out into the group, and then say, how does this resonate with you? Or what is God speaking to you through this passage or through this story? And ultimately, like, the sermon arises from the people within that group. And we'll pray over each other, toward the end of the time together. We lift up specific prayers for one another, and there's always things that we're lifting up to each other. And it's been pretty life-giving in a lot of ways for a lot of people. And I'll show you a little. So actually, I know the logistical piece of it may be peculiar to some people, but over here, this is actually a screen that is a mirror of my computer screen. So you can pull up video, or you can pull up Bible verses, and it looks like a big screen on the wall in the space. And so right here is actually my friend Sandy from Maryland telling a Jesus story. And down here is my friend Gio from New York, actually leading us in worship through a live stream on his YouTube channel that we piped into the big screen. And so, and this is, so this is kind of what this space looks like. And some of the things that have really been like early on in this journey. I remember we were going around introducing ourselves, and everybody was saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And there was a guy that said, I'm Liam, and I don't really know about God. I don't really know about this God stuff. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, there's so many opportunities here to connect with people. I mean, this guy was in Northern Ireland. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning where he lived at the time we were talking. And we sat and talked for almost an hour after our time together. There's a girl, and I'll actually show you a couple of faces here of people so y'all may recognize these folks down here, but this is Gio, who's led worship, and Dave Dybert, he's actually in Maryland as well. He's our greeter. And this young lady right here, her name is Rebecca, and she is a Christian, and she's never led any kind of Christian ministry or any kind of group or anything in her journey with Christ. But in this space, she was willing to jump in and lead the Jesus story for us one week. And so there's been people stepping up and feeling empowered, and people who have said, I'm so glad I can connect to my community while I'm quarantined with COVID, and interfaith dialogue where there's, a Quaker and a Muslim and a rabbi and a preacher together talking about faith. And so church can happen anywhere. I truly believe that church can happen anywhere. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing, and grateful for all the amazing things that you all are doing as well. So that's all I got. Thank you.